Hello, everybody. How's it going? My name is Dragana Drobnjak, and I am a librarian, activist, maker living here in Syracuse, New York. And I am very happy to present to you a little bit about creating personal protective equipment for local hospitals and community organizations. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys right now. Just give me a moment, please. All right, so here we are in wonderful Google Slides. So again, public libraries printing PPE, design, manufacture, and distribution in Syracuse, New York. And this is presented by myself, Dragana Drobnjak. And I am also presenting this as a private citizen right now. And I just want to share with everybody the wonderful amount of resources that exist at public libraries nationwide. So just a little bit about me. I grew up in former Yugoslavia in a little town called Petrinja. And the reason I found the creation of this personal protective equipment so important was because I saw a struggle, an attack on a lot of different areas of our life that to me seemed very similar and consistent to what I have experienced living in former Yugoslavia during the Civil War. Um, During the time that COVID struck, I was actually horrifically taken back to memories of the Civil War, and my PTSD was really triggered. However, my family persisted then, as people persist now, and I think that in full swing, we can really see profound differences in access to services, education, and technology that are compounded by the presence of a virus. And yet we continue to fail to address these shortcomings. So moving on, the communication issues that struck up in former Yugoslavia and the lack of access to resources really provided a place for me to engage with the maker community. As my friend Willietta Richards said, perhaps our greatest asset is our memory and the ability to tap into sources of power deep within us to find new ways to resolve pressing issues. So in a virtual program that was held collaboratively between the local library system and Everson Museum, I learned about this Nisi power figure that's significant to Congo culture. Um, in their stories, ancient spirit is activated by driving a nail into the figure, and power already available within is able to assist the person in the present. Pain of the present is felt as we tapped into sources of power and knowledge, and the nail that drives the spirit and daily action as we attempt to right our wrongs. Opportunities are really endless, and public libraries really have quickly aligned themselves in solidarity, working on a moment's notice to support the growing number of children, families, and local organizations in need of various services. So symbolically, then, the Nisi figure, or the libraries rather, can be seen as a form of power brought forth by the Nisi figure in the modern era. I think that a big question for all of us right now, as we move through the present day and age, is how do we continue to solve problems, stay flexible, be creative, which is in the spirit of the maker community, remain relevant, and work with community groups and members. So working with the community groups that we want and wish to serve. And how do we use the knowledge to our adventure? So using the power of the Nisi while flying by the seat of our pants in today's day and age. Because 2020 has truly been a whirlwind. I have a little video here to introduce you guys to the 3D printing process and the 3D personal protective equipment process at the Public Library in Syracuse, New York. The project that I have initiated in collaboration and in conversations with CLRC, Christina Pope at Upstate, Onondaga Public Library Resource Spaces, and the community members like Aurora and Deaf New American Refugees of Syracuse. These have all been partners, collaborators. We have kept them in our conversations and in our prayers as we pull together finances, as we pull together staff resources and staff time to come together to purchase the equipment necessary to create 1,000 face shields for Upstate Hospital in Syracuse, as well as a few other organizations, and then to go on to create a transparent front mask for Aurora and for Deaf New American communities of Syracuse. So this is a short little video of one of the spaces where I did my work. Oh, let's go back here. And here we go. All right, so that was recorded right in downtown Syracuse at one of the public libraries. And I started working on this project right when the pandemic struck. So we stopped actively going to work, in mid-March. And that following week, I was already in there 3D printing, talking to other librarians, talking to local architect Chris Lynch over at QPK Design to figure out how can we improve on our design to ensure that health and safety, a much needed resource, is now available to the community. So in the background here, you guys can see that snow is falling as the 3D printers are humming along. I think that probably everybody in here by now knows how 3D printers operate. But the colorful plastic you see in the foreground, that is the result of the 3D printing process. So the file, the image, the picture of the object is created on a computer, very simply put, and then that information is sent to a 3D printer, kind of the same way you would send a print job to your regular printer. This one prints what you tell it to. Then I've cut out the plastic, the foam. In this one, you can see spring's well on its way with the green leaves in the background of downtown Syracuse. And then on the right, there's a little selfie of me wearing one of the face shields on July 15th, 2020. And it wasn't until another month, or no, actually at the end of that month, at the end of the July, the project was completed. The 1,000 masks for upstate. Here are the 3D printers hard at work. And here are some of the supplies that I used. One of the things that ended up being problematic is actually finding elastic. There was a period of time when everybody was sewing the face masks, and suppliers just ran out of elastic. So at one point I had to wait a whole month for elastic to be made. But as this was a step-by-step process, doing the 3D printing, cutting out the foam, the green stuff in the background, tying it onto the 3D printed object, then cutting the vinyl, 3 or 4 times before it's in shape, as it came in 100-yard rolls. And here's a stack of some of the cut vinyl, and my notes. This is how I kept track of how much of everything I cut, because time was a very precious resource. Then I moved into another space at another public library, and over there I set up the 3D printers and a little station for design, in order to really help push towards the finalized version of the transparent front mask, which I will share with you guys in the next slide, I believe. And here it is. This is the transparent front mask that we have designed. We have used 2 different resources to create this mask. They were both available on thingiverse.com at one point. One of them was the Montana mask, which is just the front, mouthpiece mask. And then we used another design created by A Mask for All. And I believe that they are out internationally, maybe in Holland. And they had a version of the transparent front with the filter, and the filter being on the bottom of the mask. And I really thought that the transparent front mask could be much more polished to create a better fit for the user. And we also saw the need with the deaf New American refugee community in Syracuse of having a wider front, so the wearer's mouth was more visible. But more tweaks to the design are needed. So I hope that this project is able to come to an end that fulfills the needs of that community. On thingiverse.com, this is where the design is uploaded. If you search for transparent front masks, it should look just like this when you pull it up. It has the 3D modeled object on the front as the cover of the page. That again has been designed by Chris Lynch of QPK Design. And again, I think it goes to really show all the amazing things that can happen when the local community pulls its resources together. So here we are in Syracuse, New York, practically middle of nowhere, and we are able to use the 3D printers at the public library. We're able to design and rework elements of existing 3D modeled objects to improve on their design and create something better. And all of this happened, right on the main road right here in Syracuse, New York. The architect's office was is seriously a stone's throw away from the public library down there. And then to see a community organization that can benefit from these resources, so like Aurora of Central New York and the Deaf New American community of Syracuse, is really monumental. So here is a little story that was done on the project, and again, it talks a little bit about my former country in this slide. I identify myself as a refugee from former Yugoslavia. My background is tied to all of the former regions. I am Croatian and I'm Serbian, and my ethnic tribal roots are from Montenegro. Coming here was extremely difficult for me, and to not be heard, not be understood, was, it was quite challenging. So the little news story is not long, but in it will show you guys the community that we have worked for on this project. So not just for, though, be mindful with the community. And let me just show you, hopefully it takes me right to it. And it does. And here we can press play.
I'm Justin Bachman. This mask that I'm wearing is a safety precaution, but sometimes the items that aren't meant to keep us safe can have unintended consequences. For Central New Yorkers that are deaf or hard of hearing, a mask like this makes lip reading impossible. Some transparent masks do exist on the market, but there's a librarian in Syracuse who wants to make access to masks like that much easier.
Not being heard or being misunderstood, it falls into the category of being undervalued to me, and I don't want that to repeat itself.
Dragana Drobniak knows what it's like not to be understood. A refugee originally from former Yugoslavia, her current project is working to give a voice to a quieter part of her community.
It's using the resources that already belong to the community.
She's working to design masks that can be 3D printed at libraries around Syracuse. She's paired up with Chris Lynch, a local architect, and together they came up with their first design.
Ultimately, if there's not collaboration and we design something in a bubble, the chances of succeeding are pretty much zero.
With a couple of their first prototypes printed, the pair decided to go ahead and break that bubble, bringing in Manu, a deaf New American. And it's a good thing they did, because immediately she had notes.
This mask, I don't think is really good for the deaf community. I think the deaf community will buff it.
Hard plastic and a relatively narrow opening were two of her biggest criticisms, but she didn't only have bad things to say.
I think this is a wonderful first step, absolutely, because you've reached out to us and you're asking a person that would utilize these masks. I think that's beautiful. I think it's a wonderful first step. And then we can work together in making the modifications necessary. And I would say that the small steps make the difference.
For Dragana and Chris, it's back to the drawing board, but this time with a better understanding of what to change, putting them one step closer to a community-empowering design. In Syracuse, I'm Justin Bachman, Spectrum News.
All right, so one of the very important points in that news story was this, the idea that really we are working together to create these resources. So the resources that are being created, they are not created for the community, as I corrected myself earlier, that they are created with the community if the community actually needs them. So one of the things that I learned in all of this is that as much good and benefit we are creating, unless we're creating it directly for ourselves, we really need to step back and ask ourselves, is this something that actually will be relevant and used by the community? And that brings me to the very, very last slide, and the most important point of this entire presentation is that nothing should be created or existing for anybody without them, that community, being involved directly in the conversation. So nothing about us without us. I think that that is a very, very important point to remember. And here is my contact information. Please feel free to contact me with anything, any questions, if you would like to collaborate, if you would um, like to help design the next, the best thing, and figure out how to help integrate community organizations and other supporters into it, please let me know. I am I'm actually kind of good at drawing all of those points and resources together. So I hope that we're able to work together at some point. And that is all I have to share with you guys at this point. Please stay in touch. I'm going to, there is a question for me in chat here. Is the library open to the public now? And are you still creating masks? Can member of the public 3D print masks for themselves? So actually, that is that's a difficult question, because it involves it involves the fact that I have recently been furloughed from that position, but the library is going to be open by appointment basis at some soon point here in Syracuse, New York. So if you do want to find out more, I would really urge you to call and contact and ask. And also, in the day and age when resources are being reprioritized, we might have to be mindful of some of the losses that might be incurred as we juggle priorities. Like, I'm a huge supporter of the arts, for example. I think the arts have taken a hit in the education system a long time ago, and it's one of those areas that really do help us think creatively. As in right now, I don't think that without my art background and knowledge, I really would have that manufacturer's mind. Like, what is there that needs addressing, and what can I do to address it? And also being mindful of the fact that prototypes are failures. Prototypes are failures over and over again. You have a whole line of failures before you end up with something that does work. And having that persevering spirit is incredibly important. And if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to throw them at me. I did put my email in that last slide, but again, it's Dragana the librarian. So Dragana the librarian at gmail.com. All right, thanks, y'all. I really do appreciate being a part of this, and I'm glad that this is recorded as well so that it can be shared further. Lots of love to you all. Thank you for having me.